today on chapter 5, and the title of chapter 5 is Shh. When I was very little, before I could go outside, we had to have everything delivered. Groceries, clothes, everything. Mama couldn't shop by herself because she couldn't read or handle money, and I was way too young to go out alone with her. I think Bernadette liked it better that way, all of us staying inside together. Bernie was great on the phone. She could talk people into bending the rules and helping us out in all kinds of ways. Every now and then, somebody wasn't willing to bring us whatever it was we needed, and when that happened, whatever it was, we just did without. But Mama and I were the opposite of Bernadette. We wanted to go out. I used to sit on Mama's lap at the window and we'd both laugh when the sparrows landed on the sill or when cars honked their horns below in the street. Once I was old enough, I began to beg Bernie to let Mama and me go out to do the shopping together. Eventually, she gave in. At first, we were only allowed to go places on our block because of the street crossing thing. Luckily, there was a Double D grocery store on the corner. Bernie would stand by the door, wringing her hands the whole time we were gone, but Mama and I loved the Double D. We liked to push the cart down the aisles and to taste the tiny sample cubes of yellow cheese or muffin they sometimes put out on the counters. On the way home, Mama and I held hands and laughed out loud at the pigeons scurrying away from us as we walked. I loved being out with Mama. But all that changed the day the vacuum cleaner broke. Our vacuum cleaner was an ancient metal tank with fins that looked like a rocket ship about to blast off. After it broke, Bernie called around and found out that nobody made that kind anymore, and only one store in Reno had the part we needed to fix it. They wouldn't send the piece, and it was too far away to walk. So I begged Bernie to let Mama and me take the bus. "Pretty please, with sugar on top," I pleaded. I had never taken a bus before, but I had seen them pass by under the window a million times, and I was dying to ride on one. Bernie was reluctant, but I badgered her until finally she showed me out the window where the bus stop was and gave Mama and me enough change for 2 round trips. It's in a different neighborhood, Heidi. All strangers. Fly under the radar. Don't talk to anyone. Don't even look at them. And you hold your Mama's hand the whole time. It's not safe. Do you understand me? She told me nervously. It's not safe. Mama and I walked down to the corner to wait for the bus. Despite all that Bernie had said, I wasn't afraid. I was excited. The number 5 commuter came around the corner and passed so close to us that it blew Mama's hair back away from her face and lifted her dress up above her knees. The brakes made a high-pitched screeching noise. Or at least I thought that's what it was until I realized the sound was coming out of Mama's mouth. She was screaming, and when she began to sob and clutch at her chest, I grabbed her arm and tried to pull her down the sidewalk toward home. Bernadette had seen and was hanging out the window yelling when we got there. "Get inside, Heidi! Hurry up, get inside!" People stopped to stare, and a woman in a big hat tried to grab my shoulder. "Do you need help, little girl?" she asked. "Do you want me to call the police?" Bernadette was waiting at the door with juji fruits when we got upstairs, but Mama didn't even seem to see her. She rushed into the room and started walking in a circle, patting her chest rapidly with one hand. "Done, done, done. Heidi, shh," she kept saying over and over. Bernadette tried to give her juji fruits, but Mama wouldn't take them. Done, done, done. Heidi, shh, Mama said again. Why is she doing that? I asked. Bernadette watched her for a minute, and then a sad, knowing look came over her face. She went to Mama and said very softly, "Why don't you give me the baby, Precious? She'll be safe with me. Give her to me now, okay?" "What baby?" I asked. "What are you talking about, Bernie?" "Give me the baby," she said again to Mama. "Give Heidi to me, Precious." Mama stopped pacing. Breathing heavily, she slowly extended her arms to Bernadette, who reached out and took the invisible baby from her. As soon as she had done that, Mama went out to the kitchen and lay down in the middle of the floor. She curled up and shut her eyes. "What's happening?" I asked Bernadette. "I think maybe your Mama's having a memory," she said. "You said, 'Give me Heidi.' Is Mama remembering me?" I asked. "I'm not sure, honey lamb." Then Mama said something that neither of us could quite hear. I got down on the floor next to her and leaned over to her, stroking her hair. "What is it, Mama?" I whispered. "What do you remember?" "Suf," she whimpered softly. "Suf." How can you tell if someone has memories if they can't talk about the things they remember? Mama remembered lots of things from one day to the next: how to make tea, where her toothbrush was, how to open cans. But did she remember her past? Her mother? The day I was born? My father? Maybe she had pictures of all those memories in her head, but she didn't have the words to describe them. Or maybe her broken machine had a little hole in the side and all those memories had slipped through it like small round candies, rolling across the floor into dark corners or under the bed among the dust bunnies. All except one, that is. One memory was so important, Mama held on to it and gave it a word all its own to help her to remember. Suf. I spent hours picturing that word with all the answers to my unanswered questions tied to it, one after the other, like the knotted rag tail of a kite. I'd imagine myself standing there on the ground holding on to the ball of string while that word sailed and skidded and danced across the cloudless blue sky above me. But only Mama knew what it meant, and she wasn't telling. "What a suf, Mama," I'd whisper as I sat on the edge of her bed at night, gently scratching her back. I hoped it might slip out of her mouth and onto her pillowcase as she closed her eyes and relaxed into the rhythm of my scratching. Sometimes I'd sit down next to her on the couch, open up a magazine and flip through the pictures pointing at things: a baby, a dog, a car. "Show me suf, Mama. Is this suf? Is this?" Mama would smile her sweet wide smile and pat my knee the way she always did when I sat close to her. "Tea, Heidi?" she'd say. "Tea?" With anybody else, I might have thought offering to get me tea right then like that was a way of changing the subject in order to avoid having to answer the question. Like the time Xander offered to let me see the wart on his foot when what I'd asked him to show me was one of the medals he claimed his father had won in Vietnam. But I knew Mama didn't understand what I was asking. She could tell that I wanted something and she didn't want to disappoint me, so she offered me one of the only things she was sure she could give me: tea. So I said, "Sure, Mama, I'd like some tea." And she said, "Good, Heidi, tea," and went off to the kitchen to make us 2 cups of Lipton, hers in the white cup with the gold rim and mine in the one with pink roses, both with 3 spoons of sugar and a splash of milk, just the way Bernadette had taught her. But 1,000,000 cups of Mama's sweet tea couldn't have washed away my longing for the meaning of that word. Before Bernadette had come down with her AP, she'd been a big fan of the library. She went there practically every day. I knew Bernie missed the library, so I was glad when I was finally allowed to walk the 3.5 blocks to go there for her. Mama would come too. She liked to look at the picture books. Before we stopped going out together, Mama and I went to the library at least once a week. Bernie made lists of the books she wanted me to take out for her to read, and she was also always having me look up things about hermit crabs or George Washington Carver or whatever else we happened to be studying at school. Whenever I brought a new stack of books home, Bernie would press them to her nose, close her eyes, and breathe in deep, just like I'd seen her do with her father's old overcoat, which still hung in the hall closet in her apartment. After I started wondering about Suf, I asked Mrs. Koppelman, the librarian, if she'd ever heard of Mama's word, and she said it sounded like maybe it was foreign. She showed me where the international dictionaries were, and I looked in all of them. Nothing. I'd already looked it up at home in the MBF, of course, hoping to run my finger down the page and find it there among the other SOO words. Soon, soot, sooth, soothe. It wasn't there. It wasn't anywhere, except in Mama's head. I kept one ear cocked, listening for her to say it. On the rare occasions when she did, I'd pounce on it, looking for clues. Once she said it while she was watching Bernie brush the tangles out of my hair after a bath. Another time when she cut her finger on the lid of a can she was trying to open. But it wasn't consistent. I stood in front of her and brushed my hair 1,000,000 times after that, trying to trigger it, but it didn't work. When it came without rhyme or reason. I began hearing it in strange places. Awake in the night during a rainstorm, cars passing by under the window, their wet tires whispering, "Suf." Bernie's slippers sometimes said it too, as she shuffled across the speckled linoleum between the sink and the old round-shouldered refrigerator. I spent hours looking into Mama's eyes, imagining that somewhere behind them was a little package all wrapped up for me with a tag attached saying, "This is Suf." I started having trouble sleeping. Bernadette learned to steer clear of me when I was underslept. She'd been around enough cranky old cats to know how to avoid being scratched and hissed at. But when my upset started rubbing off on Mama and making her rimply, Bernadette lost patience and lit into me. Heidi, I've said it before and I'll say it again. There are some things in life you just cannot know, and the meaning of that word of your Mama's is one of them. The sooner you come to grips with that, the better it will be for all of us. Maybe she was right. Maybe it was time to give up. Why did I think that word was so important anyway? For all I knew, it was nonsense, some misremembered thing she'd overheard somebody say on the street. I told myself these things over and over, hoping to talk myself into believing them. Maybe I would have too, if I hadn't found the camera way in the back of the sticky bottom drawer in the kitchen where we kept odds and ends like birthday candles and rubber bands. I was looking for the Scotch tape and yanked the drawer open so hard the whole thing came crashing out onto the floor. And there it was, a black plastic Kodak Instamatic camera and inside it, a roll of film. Used. My search for the truth began in earnest after I had that film developed. The day I came home with the pictures, Bernadette was sitting at the dining room table looking at a library book about marsupials. "Wish I had a pouch," she said, "perfect for stashing reading glasses." I set the envelope of photos down in front of her. She closed her book without even bothering to save her place. "Tell the truth, Heidi," she said, picking up the yellow envelope and turning it over in her hands. "Did you peek at them on the way home? It's okay if you did." "No, I was afraid to," I said. "What's the worst it could be?" she asked. "Nothing. The worst would be if there was nothing," I said. "Well, let's see what there is then, baby," she said softly as she slid a finger under the flap and broke the seal. "Let's just see."